Hello and welcome to another Masterclass interview brought to you by The Banker from Malta. I'm joined now by Kenneth Farrugia, Chairman of FinanceMalta, the public sector partnership organisation that promotes Malta as a financial centre overseas. Kenneth is also Chief Officer for Valletta Fund Services, which is part of Bank of Valletta, one of Malta's two biggest banks. And Kenneth is going to talk about FinanceMalta's ambitions for Malta as a financial centre. Kenneth, what exactly are FinanceMalta's objectives? What sort of financial firms do you want to attract here?
Well, FinanceMalta was set up predominantly to strengthen the brand of Malta outside our shores as a financial jurisdiction and ensure that it is one of the jurisdictions of choice within a European context. Insofar as the target market for FinanceMalta's various initiatives, we are looking at financial and credit institutions, family offices and family businesses, and we're looking to influence gatekeepers in placing Malta as an option for their clients when they come to choose a jurisdiction in Europe.
When you say gatekeeper, could you define exactly what you mean by gatekeeper?
Gatekeepers are those organizations and entities that have a strong say in the decision where business is domiciled within both a European and non-European context. And these would include audit firms, legal firms and consultancy firms in the main.
We've just heard from Professor Bannister from the MFSA about what makes Malta attractive as a financial centre. But what exactly is it that makes Malta more competitive? It's such a small country. How do you manage to compete against financial centres in other parts of Europe and indeed the world?
Yes, well, as they say, small is beautiful, and it makes you nimble as well. And I think that's one of the unique success factors for the financial services industry in Malta, because being small enables us to react very quickly. Just to cite an example, in this EU scoreboard last February, Malta ranked first with Denmark insofar as its efficiency to transpose European Union directives into national legislation. And I think that is reflective of what is happening in the local financial services industry, whereby we are reacting very quickly to the developments taking place within both Europe and non-European areas, insofar as transposition of legislation and ensuring that the legal and regulatory framework accommodates the requirements of business seeking an international platform.
Can you give us a flavour for the sort of financial institutions that are located here and the sort of activities that they're engaged in?
Well, the growth of the financial services industry would span itself across three core sectors. That's the banking sector, the insurance sector, and the fund sector, and to a limited extent, the trust sector. Insofar as the banking sector, the industry has continued to grow at a relatively satisfactory pace. We have a good amount of financial institutions based in Malta, to include both banks that have decided to promote their services to the Maltese market, as well as international banks, a number of international banks that are using Malta as a platform from where to conduct certain specialized banking services. Insofar as the funds industry is concerned, this is in a state of evolvement, let's put it this way. We've first started attracting the domestic funds to the market, predominantly led by the banking institutions in Malta. Post that, in the early 2000s, we saw international fund management organizations setting up their investment funds in Malta. And in these last 24 months, we're witnessing international fund administrators and fund management organizations setting up their operation in Malta. So this is giving shape and form to the industry. And I think it's driven by a number of factors. The fact that Malta is highly cost competitive, the fact that there is a presence of multi-skilled and multilingual personnel here in Malta. This can-do mindset in Malta, getting things done. I think these are all adding to the credibility of Malta as a financial jurisdiction.
Can you name some of the organisations that are here?
I think it's inappropriate to name them, but a quick look at the registry of the Malta Financial Services Authority will reveal that insofar as, for example, the insurance sector is concerned, which has grown leaps and bounds, there are some of the top insurance management companies operating in Malta. Likewise, on the fund side, you will notice that there are a number of big international companies that have set up their fund management operations in Malta or their fund platforms in Malta. Even on the banking side, we've had some of the international banks of late also setting up in Malta. And I think this augurs well for the continued growth of the industry going forward.
We've just gone through a financial crisis and a recession in Europe. How has Malta fared?
From an economic viewpoint, obviously tourism and the manufacturing has been affected, as has happened in other countries. But insofar as the financial services industry is concerned, the banking sector, just to cite an example, has proved to be very resilient. And if you look at this in numbers, the balance sheets of the banks as at the end of 2008 which were released in the MFSA report, annual report, reveals that the banking assets grew by 10% over that period to 42 billion. If you look at the funds industry, we've had a record year insofar as the number of new funds that were registered in Malta. And likewise on the insurance side, continued setting up of captive insurance companies here in Malta. So I can say with a degree of comfort that the industry has been relatively quite resilient.
You've attracted an impressive number of foreign financial institutions here to Malta. How do you do it? What is your modus operandi?
Well, this is the prime role of Finance Malta, and we literally target those three sectors that I highlighted earlier. We do these in a number of ways. Insofar as financial and credit institutions, we've teamed up, as you well know, with the Financial Times to organize events outside our shores. We've organized events in London and in Frankfurt, very successful, attracted the appropriate delegates that we wanted to be present in these, what I deem as being showcasing events. We, of course, organize various other initiatives. We support the publication of Malta supplements with leading publications which are sectorially driven.
But you must find it very difficult at times promoting Malta to the overseas financial community. There must be a lot of people out there that have got misconceptions about Malta. How do you disabuse them of those opinions?
Yes, well, going back a bit through our history, the industry commenced in the mid-80s with an offshore framework which was predominantly tax-driven. Then a change in government in the late 80s brought about with it a change in strategy which predominantly revolved around EU membership, which took place, as you well know, in 2004. In the intermittent period, we updated our legal and regulatory framework to ensure that we shed off our offshore framework, our offshore regime, our offshore label to an onshore one. The legacy positioning of Malta as an offshore jurisdiction does not go away very quickly, but I think the recent reviews conducted by international organizations about Malta's fiscal framework, our legal and regulatory framework, are clear attestations of the onshore regime that Malta has in place at this point in time.
Yeah. Finance Malta is not a government body, it's a public-private partnership. Could you tell me how it's structured and who the members are?
Yes, well, the genesis of Finance Malta goes back to 2007, and that's when the industry felt that the growth of the industry itself necessitated the setting up of an entity to own the promotion of Malta as a financial jurisdiction outside our shores. It's imperative that in developing the industry there is common vision, both of government and in the industry, in where we ultimately want to go. And that's articulated in Vision 2015, where we want to see the industry grow and contribute to 25% to the gross domestic product here in Malta. The Finance Malta is made up of representatives of government, which sit on a board of governors, and equal representatives from the various associations representing the various sectors of the financial services industry.
Finally, could you tell me about some of the interesting marketing initiatives that you've embarked on this year?
We have quite a plethora of initiatives earmarked for this year. Obviously, more of the same that we organized last year insofar as participation in conferences and supplements. This week, in fact, we'll be embarking on organizing a series of webinars and podcasts which will showcase the financial services industry in general, and the podcasts in particular will provide specific information on the respective sectors and their unique selling propositions.
Kenneth Farrugia, thank you very much for joining us.
You're welcome. Thank you.